There's something different about the way you look now. You look all dressed up for something special. So why do we dress up for? To meet someone special, perhaps? If you were going to meet the President of the United States, you'd probably dress up in a special way. Or the Queen of England, or the Pope. If you were having a formal meeting with someone, you would dress up. If you were going on an interview for a job, you would dress up in a special way. The way we dress, what we put on the outside, says a lot about the appearance, how we want to look to someone. Well, who are we meeting today in a special way? Jesus. We're having our special meeting with Jesus in First Holy Communion. So we're all dressed up in a special way. I know a lot of you have spent a lot of time getting ready with your suits and your dresses and your veils and getting everything just right. But to think for a minute why it is that we're doing all this, to meet Jesus in a most special way through Holy Communion. Well, it even goes a bit further than that. It's not just meeting Jesus. But what we say on the outside by how we dress says a lot about what's going to happen on the inside. We dress up on the outside of our bodies because that's a sign of something special that's going to happen on the inside. Girls, do you wear veils and tiaras every day? I don't think so. Your mothers and fathers, I'm sure, are very happy about that. Okay? And boys, are you in suits and ties every day? I don't think so. You dress up specially today on the outside with very unique clothing that's one of a kind. Let's hope you don't outgrow it too fast. You get some mileage out of it. But clothing on the outside that says something about the inside. Because the thing that's most important today, more important than what's on the outside, as dressed up as you may appear and as you feel, what's most important today is what's going to happen on the inside. So let's put those two things together for a minute. You're going to meet Jesus, and as much as the outside is important as you get ready to meet Jesus in First Communion, what's going to happen on the inside is more important than what's happening on the outside. Because when you meet Jesus, it's going to be on the inside. That's the important thing. When you meet Jesus, it's going to happen inside of you. When you take Holy When you take Holy Communion, you're going to receive Jesus into yourself, and that's where the meeting takes place. So, we got you all ready and all dressed up on the inside too a few months ago. You remember you made your first penance a couple of months back? And that was to get you all clean and ready and pure to meet Jesus on the inside, to get rid of any sin, any selfishness, any things that we shouldn't have done, or the good things that we didn't do as well as we should. We told God we were sorry and got ourselves ready on the inside. We scrubbed up on the inside, so to speak. I presume they've scrubbed up on the outside, but the clothing is the issue on the outside. Right. So this is a very special meeting with Jesus on the inside. First Holy Communion. Now, in the gospel that Deacon Hector read, and by the way, we all dress up for different things. Even the priests and deacons, you notice at Mass, dress up with special clothing, special vestments, as we call them. Priests wear certain things, deacons wear certain things, and Deacon Hector, who read the gospel, in 2 weeks from now, right? 2 weeks from now, he's going to be a priest. He's not a priest yet, but he's going to be ordained a priest, and on 2 weeks from today, he's going to stand at the altar for the first time at 5 o'clock in our church, and he is going to do what the priests do. Through Jesus, Jesus will change the bread and wine into his body and blood, and he, as the new priest, will do that for the first time. So we're happy for him also. So lots of things happening, and he'll change his vestments into those from a deacon now to those of a priest. So what we wear on the outside is meant to say something about what we do and who we are and the roles we have in the church. So this is your day now for First Communion. Now, in the gospel that Deacon Hector read for us a few minutes ago, Jesus was talking to the people in his time, and he was talking to them about bread. Did you hear that? About bread. They called it manna. That was an ancient, very old bread that had been used and eaten by the Jewish people way, way back many centuries ago. The people that came long before Jesus and the people he's speaking to in the crowd, their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, hundreds of years before. When they were in the desert and had no food, they asked God for food. Give us food to eat. And bread came from heaven. Bread came from the sky and landed on the ground, and they ate it. And Jesus says to them, you remember that those who came before us ate bread in the desert. But another bread comes now from heaven. Another bread comes now that will give you eternal life, life forever. And Jesus says, I am that bread. I am the bread that comes down from heaven, and anyone who eats this bread will live forever. I am the bread of life, Jesus says. And that's who you're going to meet. And that's who you're going to take into yourself in a few minutes, the bread of life, Jesus, in Holy Communion. And the people then didn't quite understand it at first. They're trying to figure out, what is he talking about? And he tells them plainly, I am that bread. I will give you eternal life because I am God, Jesus says. So, that's who you're going to receive. That's who you're going to meet. Don't you think it's good reason to dress up on the inside? Don't you think it's good reason to scrub up on the inside also, to go to confession and to have gone to First Penance this year, what that's all about? This has been a special year of getting you ready for this special day. So we celebrate and we notice the beautiful outfits you have on the outside, but we shouldn't be distracted by those things from how much more important is going on inside of you when you receive Jesus, who is the bread of life, who will give you eternal life. If we eat this bread, if we stay in communion with Jesus, we will live forever and ever and ever, because who it is that we take into ourselves in Holy Communion? Jesus. We take God into ourselves. Do we understand now that Jesus is God? We're taking God into ourselves. The Holy Communion we make is with Jesus, and he gives us eternal life because he is God. You're going to receive God, the bread of life, into you. Good reason to dress up on the outside, but even more important, good reason to consider for a little bit what's going on the inside. Now, boys and girls, and big boys and girls, do you think this is something we should do only once in our life? Or only today and go home and that's it? Having heard all of that, if our faith brings us to believe that, as is the faith of the church, who in their right mind wouldn't do it regularly? You'd have to be out of your right mind not to do it regularly. So big boys and girls have to think a little bit too about what we're doing here too. We have to stay in communion with Jesus, with God, always. Now, boys and girls, this whole year, have we called what is this day called? This is your what? What are you going to do? Your first communion, your first Holy Communion. Have we called it your only Holy Communion? Did we ever say you're going to make your once and only Holy Communion today for the rest of your life ever? We've called it First Holy Communion. The only reason we say first is because we presume there's going to be a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth Holy Communion. Wouldn't you say, big boys and girls? Who in their right mind wouldn't receive a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a 10th, a millionth time? I was thinking before the homily, how many times we've received communion, the priests and the teachers and others. I can just begin to imagine, but I was telling the boys and girls, this month of May of 2016 marks my 50th anniversary. 50 years ago, the beginning of this month, a half century, 50 years, a half century ago, I received my first Holy Communion. We can only imagine the others. I look at Monsignor Ferrezi, he must be up to 1 million, at least. And Deacon Hector will be celebrating as a priest changing the bread and wine, Jesus working through him to do that for the first time. He's received Holy Communion an awful lot. But to do it for the first time as a priest, 2 weeks from now, he'll be doing it for the first time. And Father Leisure is somewhere in between all that. And Deacon Francisco's in between all that. But this is a happy day. This is a good thing. Eternal life, bread of life is important. It's good. Who in their right mind would, I want you to say that to yourselves when you go home. Are we in our right minds if we don't go to Mass tomorrow and receive Holy Communion again? You're not in your right spiritual minds if you don't. Get into your right spiritual minds and do it. They need to. Because my prayer for you, boys and girls, as I have said every time I've preached at a Holy Communion Mass, a First Communion Mass, is that today is your first. And the secret we've told them is if they receive from the cup, they're actually receiving their first and second, by the way. But our prayer, my prayer for all of you is that you receive Holy Communion so much, so many times, that you lose count. That you do it so much that you can't keep track anymore, you've lost count of how many times. That's my prayer for you. I hope you lose count really fast, really soon. There was a little boy in one parish when I gave this homily one time years ago who came up to me toward the end of June and said, "This is number 11. I hope by now he's lost track and lost count. I hope for all of you, with the guidance and help of your parents and godparents, family with you, who are in their right spiritual minds, I hope that you lose track, you lose count very soon. And I hope for you that a few months from now, end of June, after summer vacation, September, October, next Christmas, that if you were asked, how many times have you made Holy Communion? I can't remember anymore because it's been so many times. I hope it's not because I can't remember the last time I went. That's a sad answer. I hope your answer will be, I can't remember because it's been so many times that I've gone and I've lost count. Because we need to make our meeting with Jesus on the inside part of our lives every day and every week of the year. Every week of the year. The Church holds this so important. Communion, keeping communion with Christ is so important through the sacrament of the Eucharist that we need it for our eternal life. We need it for our spiritual health. We're not in our sound minds if we don't. We need to be in our sound minds with Christ. We need to have health, sanación, health of mind and spirit. We need to be sane, sanación, it's the same root, health. We need to be sane, and we need to be with Christ always and stay in communion with Christ always. So, brothers and sisters, big boys and girls today, the invitation is to all of us to party, to celebrate, to congratulate, to affirm what they have come to learn through faith and your help and your guidance through the years, and to make this and keep this part of your life with God. Jesus gives us the bread of life. It is the bread for health, spiritual health, and eternal life. Anyone in their right mind will do it. And I hope for all of you, you lose track very, very soon as to how many times you've done it. So our prayers are for all of you, dressed up as you are today so beautifully. And even on those Sundays and those days when you're not wearing the fancy clothing quite as much, that you remember always the specialness of every Holy Communion that you make, and that every time is an encounter, a meeting with Jesus Christ, that you receive God into you, and that you keep him part of your life, the center of your life, because he is what gives us sanity, health, health of mind, health of body, and health of spirit. Parents, families, godparents, and of course you children. I pray soon that you can't keep track anymore how many times. I'm going to ask you sooner or later.